Hey everybody, welcome to Coffee and Cameras. This is episode 15. It is January the 11th, 2020. I'm Josh Mills of Josh Mills Photography, and this is my Saturday morning group chat. If you want to be part of this group chat, make sure to join my Facebook group. I'll post the link down below. If you want more content like this and like what you saw, make sure to hit that like and subscribe below so you're notified whenever I upload something new. We're going to go ahead and jump right in and talk about some images some of the members in the group have shared, and then we'll follow that up with some photography news. So let's go ahead and get to it. And I've already got a few friends on here. I've got Melissa up in Jersey, Philly area. I've got Stephen Buller up there in the Jersey, Philly area. I've got Martin Poole of Speedlite Photo out in Australia, Perth to be exact. And I got a couple people on the phone. Looks like Matt Cook, and I don't know who this iPhone is. They just told me to put them on mute because they're at work. But I appreciate that you're listening in while you're at work. So thank you. Cool. So guys, like I was saying, the first thing that I really want to jump in on here, because it was something that happened this week, is the whole copyright thing when it comes to photography. So without going into detail of who it was, whose work, and who the offender was, I just want to kind of go over what the scenario was. Basically, a photographer I know, he had done a photo shoot for a model, basically portfolio work, and she specifically requested that she get the images raw and unedited, which is not an uncommon request for a model that needs stuff for a portfolio, especially if she's with an agency, because the agencies a lot of times request images completely unretouched so they get the true look of their possible, client. Just a couple nights ago, my buddy that's a photographer that provided these pictures, his wife actually came across those same images. They had been edited and they had another photographer's watermark on them. Not cool at all. All right, so my buddy that shot the photos, he owns the copyright. And then this other photographer was obviously provided these photos by the model, which is number one. But then that photographer took it upon themselves to edit the photos and put their watermark on it. And not just their logo, but it was actually the copyright symbol and their business name. So, I mean, like blatantly, okay, I'm the copyright owner. No, not cool whatsoever. So that's one of those things that, one of the very few things that I don't tolerate ever. And I do understand that, there are situations, especially when it comes to someone brand new to photography, that they just haven't encountered it and don't understand. It doesn't make it okay. It might make it a little bit forgivable to me, because I have seen new photographers do stuff like this. And, I just kind of privately say, hey, by the way, you don't do this and this is why. And then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, let me correct the mistake. This instance was someone who claims to have been a professional working photographer for many years. So there is absolutely no excuse for it whatsoever. They know better. So, it's been dealt with privately. My buddy that owns the images, he chose to not publicly blast them about it. But, it's one of those things that I've seen it done a half dozen times, by people I know or know someone that knows, and it's not an acceptable thing. We have enough problems with people that aren't in the industry snagging our photos and using them, and businesses snagging photos and using them. We don't need other photographers cannibalizing our work. So it is what it is. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out, and I made this post in the group, just to bring up that topic for discussion. And a lot of people have put some good resources in here to go through and actually get information if you're not aware of the information. If you're watching this on YouTube later on, go ahead and join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/photo talk group. I'll put a link in on the screen and down in the comments later, so y'all can just click on the link. And y'all can find this post, and it's got several links in the post with good information for copyright. So y'all can go and find that information pretty easily. All right. Anybody have anything they want to comment and say about this before we just jump in and talk about some images?
Actually, sorry.
I think it's becoming quite difficult with Instagram and Facebook, and it's only going to get harder with all the social media things that are not even out at the moment.
Yep.
I noticed the latest thing that's happened here in Australia with a couple of newbie photographers that I know. You see, Instagram carries a storyboard which only lasts 24 hours. And they are getting away with putting other people's work up on there without creating a link back to the photographer. It's happened to me a couple of times where people have used my images without my permission on their storyboards to attract other photographers to work. Well, that's fine, but they don't. I wouldn't mind, but they don't even put a link back to me.
Right.
And then it's 24 hours later, it's gone and it's all over and done with. And you make I saw one the other day from a person in the States, a guy from Perth, said, this is how us flash photographers set up a flash studio shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a 10-second video, a lovely 10-second video, but it wasn't from this guy. This guy had nothing to do with it, and he just because you only saw the back of the guy's head, it was purported to be him, and it just annoyed me because I had to look twice at it to say, well, hang on a minute, that's not you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's a good studio setup, and it's not what you were doing. It's not your studio. In fact, it's not even the same country. But 24 hours later, it's gone.
Yep, exactly. By the way, Melissa, I put you on mute because I hear a lot of stuff going on in your background. Anytime you want to talk, just reach down and press and hold the space bar. Cool. Gotcha. Thank you. All right. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I mean, it's one of those that it's not just photography. I mean, it's any kind of art and content that we create. It's a problem with people snagging stuff, and that's one of those things that, one, I have a lot of friends that are graphic artists also, so they do a lot of composite work, and they don't have the time to go out and produce the base images that they use for a lot of the composites. So obviously they're using other people's images, but they're using those images from, stock photo or contacting a content producer directly, whatever. And then on top of that, for the most part, I usually see they'll say these images were used in producing this work, and this image was created by this image was created by this image, giving credit to even though they're not using that image as a whole, it might be just the slightest little thing yanked out of it, but they're at least crediting where they're getting all of these different, pieces to create their work. So, Yep. Good morning, John.
I would like to add to that because I'm a graphic designer full time, and that's like my profession. And a lot of the time, when you're in that corporate setting, you don't have the time to pull like things you need, so you use a lot of stock imagery. And some of my best work is composited with stock imagery. So like, there's no shame in reproducing something as long as it's free of copyright.
Right, exactly. And that's why I said they use a lot of stock imagery, and I'm not talking about jumping on the search engine and just yanking down photos with no regard as to whose and where it came from and whether or not it is, free to use. Most of my working friend graphic artists, they have accounts with stock image houses where they have the rights and they're given license to those images whenever they download them. So,
A good website, if anybody does need stock imagery, is on splash.com. Everything on that website is free to use commercially and personally. So if anybody ever needs like resources, that's a great website. And pexels.com as well. Those are just two that I use all the time. And they're open to everyone, no attribution required.
Cool. All right. Well, Anybody else got anything they want to add on to the copyright discussion real quick before we start jumping on some pictures? All right, cool. Anybody put any pictures in that they want me to bring up first?
Yes.
Yes, who was that?
Johnny D.
Johnny D. Where'd you put your image? All right, let's start with Alexandria first. Cool, cool. All right, you want to give us some insight on this shot before we talk about it?
Yes, white background, 2 side lights bouncing off the back, 65-inch cheetah stand modifier right overhead. I think I shot this at like 5.6 or something. Steve was with me, but I forget what I shot it at.
Okay.
And
so when you said you had your 65 directly overhead, are you talking about you actually had the umbrella over the top of her firing straight down, or are you talking about?
Oh, okay. No, 45 degree.
Okay, but it was basically still directly in front of her, just firing down. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I was just asking because, you know, it's actually a very common practice to take a large, like a 65 or 70 or whatever parabolic umbrella with a diffuser and have it literally directly overhead firing straight down, so you get this nice, like, really soft fill light in front of them. You'll actually see Duke uses that setup a lot, and then adding additional lights to create your shadows and highlights. Right. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, that is my favorite light.
Oh yeah,
that umbrella is, you could do so much with it, and
it's one of the reasons I told you to get it.
Yeah, and I like the softness it delivers. It's just great. So I mean, that's all I really have been using.
Cool.
And I think I shot this last week or so. And she did her own makeup, and that's it there. And we glued all of those flowers on her face.
you use super glue, right? Gorilla glue.
No, bubble gum. Bubble gum. No, she used eyelash glue.
Eyelash glue.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it was edited from Capture One, because I was tethering, to Photoshop frequency separation.
Okay.
And then brought it back in.
Nice. All right. I just heard a ding dong, and it looks like Rick Wilson has joined us in the group here. So good morning, Rick. We're taking a moment to talk images. So say hello, and we're going to jump right back in here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Where do I upload?
All right. So looking at the image, I love the concept. I love that you have the white rose and the petals. And the petals, the way that they're attached to her face, they almost look like they're falling in front of her face, not actually attached to her face. And when I first looked at this, I have that question of, is that composited, or was that, actual real life? It almost has that look of, oh, those were added in post, Lighting wise, I like that you blew out the background. Obviously there's some issues with where the hair has got blown out because there was so much light coming from behind.
Yeah.
Usually the way that I address that is I will actually not blow out the white in the background completely. I'll just expose it enough to where it's just a very light gray, and then I don't get all of that bounced light that will actually blow out the hair.
Yeah.
And then I'll take and bring up that light gray to a white in post.
Yeah.
The one thing I also like here is the fact that the rose, you made sure that it stayed that off-white, that eggshell or creamy white, which actually gives separation, especially where it overlaps the white background.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just blend in and disappear into the background. It may be my monitor brightness, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit underexposed for the style that I'm looking at. I might bump up the exposure on it just a touch. Actually, you know what? Let me download this where we can bring it in and actually look at it larger. So basically, even looking at Photoshop, I feel like it might be just a touch underexposed for the high key-ish look that it has to it. Mm-hmm. So I might bump it up a little bit, and I'm adding a levels adjustment here real quick, just so I can bring it up. And what I'm doing here is I brought the midtones up because that's where most of her skin's going to fall.
Yeah.
I brought the highlights up, which actually, if you're doing it in levels, you bring it down and that increases how bright the highlights are, because I really wanted to see these highlights and tonal contrast on the petals. But then I'm coming back in and kind of countering that, because just doing that will actually it'll wash out the darkness of her hair. So I'm coming back into the shadows and I'm bringing the shadows back. So now when I toggle that on and off, you see the image got brighter, but I'm not losing the richness in the hair.
Yeah.
But see how much life it brings to her face, and it kind of brings that high key. And actually, that might have washed out a little bit of the color, so I might come back in and add a vibrance or a saturation layer in addition to it. So if we bring up saturation just a bit, that'll add some more richness to the lips and to her skin tone. And this is something I would just play with to balance it out, to get, you know, that increase in exposure but not losing the saturation to the skin tones and everything. So let me group that so we can toggle them on and off. So you see the difference there?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's subjective. That's something that I personally would do.
Yeah.
The other thing I would do is I'd probably go back in and clean up the little bit of hair where it just has funky terminations due to being blown out from that background light.
Yeah.
You know, like right up here on this curl and over here around this curl. So, yep. I might also take and do a little liquefy and fill out that hair a bit. You know, just to,
yeah.
So something like that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything that they want to say about the image? I mean, I can't really zoom in much because this is actually just a small Facebook, you know, post. So I can't zoom in and show you how much detail and everything is left. I can tell that you did a good job on leaving all the skin texture, because even under a Facebook compression, skin texture will show up as pixelization like you see right here.
Yeah.
So I can see that, yeah, you still retain the skin texture. And I know you shot it very shallow. Even though you're at 5.6, it's still pretty shallow. So I can definitely tell, like, the way her head was tilted down, her chin is already starting to fall out of that acceptable plane of focus. I can also see it on the back edge of these petals that are, you know, further from the camera and everything. Yeah. I mean, if you had shot it stopped down to 9 or 10 or whatever, so that you had a really deep, you know, acceptable plane of focus, obviously that would have all been in focus. But that's a creative choice. I like to shoot a bit shallower myself because I like to have those back edges fall out of focus, you know, while other people are like, no, I need everything in frame to be tack sharp, you know, and I fall into the previous. So
I like the previous also. That's why I shot it like that.
Yep. I like the shot. Very creative.
The only suggestion I would give is the red of her lips kind of get cut off right at the top of her mouth. I would just put a little more red in there by Photoshop.
You mean the back side of the bottom lip? Yeah. That's a problem that I see a lot. And that's where the lip, basically starts to turn into the inside gum. And I do the same thing as
blending, maybe just to make the line transition in color. That's the only thing that really bothers me about the image. Otherwise,
I do the same thing you're saying. Is I will actually take and blend that out, or copy the color into this area so that it's a lot less obvious, the transition. So yep.
See, now I was thinking about doing that, and I said, well, it's a Facebook picture. It's not in a magazine. If it was on a magazine, I would do it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's how much time do you want to actually invest for something that you're just sharing on social media, or even if it wasn't going in a magazine, if it was going into a portfolio or your website where you're trying to promote your work, then you're going to invest that extra time. But if it's just something to say, hey, look, I shot something cool, let me slap it on Facebook and Instagram, that's up to you if you want to take the extra time to make little corrections like that. Or let me not say corrections, because it's not technically wrong. Adjustments.
Right.
There we go. Yep. Cool. All right. Let's jump back over into the group. And we'll bring this one up.
That's actually not even that wasn't the final edit. This is a pre-final. Because if you see the mirror edge on the right, I took that out in the final. But that's close to being the final.
You're talking about this edge right here?
Yeah, I took that out.
Yeah. All right, so go ahead and give us a little insight on how it was shot.
I shot this with 2 blue gels, one on the left and one on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with the 65, as high as I could put it, on like a 45.
Mm-hmm.
And then edited in actually I did it in Lightroom and then to Photoshop and then back to Lightroom. And what I did was I increased vibrance to bring up the blue a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then I dodged like the halo in the mirror and around her head.
Mm-hmm.
And I used a large feathering brush so it feathered in like that.
Right. Nice.
And this was fun shooting this. We had a lot of fun this day.
Yeah, I really don't have a whole lot to say technically wise. There's a few things that kind of grab my attention. I might clean up some of the little flyaway hairs that kind of fall into the really dark areas over, through here. But that's nitpicking. Even though like this one flyaway hair that's laying across the glass, it's right here.
Yeah.
I don't know what these are. Maybe earrings or something that I see the reflection, but I obviously don't see it up here.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I can't say because I can't really see it, is I don't know whether or not I like the negative space under her arm where I can actually see the edge of the mirror here and then what appears to be her dress versus the mirror here and what is obviously the background. I don't know. I don't know if it would have looked better if she had actually been, had her arm laid on the glass there, so there was not this negative space. Yeah. But I feel like that negative space, kind of separates things, so it's a good thing. I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. Yeah, I'm on the fence about it. But overall, I like the lighting. So you had blue gels left and right.
Right.
And you had the 65 overhead at a 45 to give you your open up your shadows and your main exposure.
And it was right on her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, the pole, the stand was like right up against the mirror. It's only like a 30-inch mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very close because I wanted it extremely breaking, spreading out and looking really nice.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, I really like the shot. I like the idea behind it. And like you said, this one isn't your final edit. You're going to do a few more adjustments and corrections to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the reflection. By the way, you didn't say, but you just used a regular mirror, right? This isn't just a reflective surface like a piece of acrylic or something.
It's a big mirror. It's actually like 5 feet tall and 30 inches wide.
Nice. Cool.
The only
Anybody
thing
else?
I would add, sorry.
No, go ahead. That's what I was about to ask. Anybody else?
The only thing I would add is I love your color gradation. I love the flow and how the light is transitioning into the dark. I just feel like the edge on the right side of her face where her hand is not dark enough. I feel like all of it is so smooth. I feel like you went really light and it could be a little darker. I think you can explore your darks a little more because it's such a nice photo. I feel like, there's so much light on this side, like just the softness, and then it kind of gets shallow, and then the darks just don't pull me in enough. That's all. Because like this crack right here in the middle is your focal point, and if you had just a little more dark where her hand is to her cheek, it would just fill it out so nicely. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's a great piece. Like everything is balanced. The composition is so perfect.
Cool. Yeah, no, I definitely like it, and I feel like once you have the little things finished on it, it's definitely going to be a very strong image. I would also make sure and clean up these flyaways back here behind her head that are kind of sitting out there in the halo, because they are obvious. So, okay.
Yeah. But what's cool about editing when in the mirror, when you fix it on the face, it fixes it in the mirror.
Oh, don't even start that lie. There's going to be people watching this on YouTube. They're going to be like, really? Oh my God, I got to try it. And then they're going to be so disappointed.
I always, when I've done stuff like this in the past, guys, I've always tilted this at 90 degrees just to get an effect out of it. Can you just tilt that at 90 degrees, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. Where are we at here? Why is my rotation not showing up?
It is.
I'm not on my game this morning.
No, the other way, bud.
The other way? You want her looking down? Because her hair is going down. That's why I went that direction. Very interesting. I think I like it going up.
Yeah.
So if we go that way.
Yeah. But as you say,
it's almost like she's doing the like the Heisman or
Yeah.
Good image. Love it.
Yep. Cool. All right, let's jump back over in the group real quick here. Oh, Martin, that's gorgeous.
What's that, your front yard, Martin?
Yeah, that is just over the road, that, John.
Oh,
I'm on my way to us.
I get pissed off with that, looking out of the kitchen window every morning.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
I would move. That is hideous. I would hate seeing that every day.
Yeah, who wants to see that every morning?
Yeah. Yeah, that's gorgeous, Martin. And I don't know if you had wanted that one discussed, but we were scrolling past it, and that's just a beautiful landscape sunset. Is that sunset or you're on the West Coast, so that's sunset.
Yeah, that's sunset. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Actually, how much post went into this to bring out all that detail and all that color?
An hour.
An hour? Oh, that's not bad at all. Did you do it all in Lightroom, Photoshop?
That was Photoshop. I mean, it was Nissy filtered. The one thing that I started to do with this was, using focusing at 5 meters on f11, which was bringing back to front completely focused to infinity, which makes a massive difference.
Yeah. Were you using an ND filter with it so that you got that 1 second exposure, or was that 1 second exposure?
I used I think it was an f-stop 3. I didn't quite do that. You asked that. I think it was a 3-stop and also a graduated filter on the
That location is just awesome. I really like the composition. I like how you were able to get at an elevation where you could get part of that outcropping up in the sky, and yet you still had it at a good angle to where there's plenty of ocean falling off behind it to show, that relation, the ocean going off in the distance behind it. Because a lot of people will be like, oh, let me get all the way down at water's level, and at water's level you wouldn't have gotten that perspective. Basically the horizon would have been right at the bottom of the rock outcrop, so you wouldn't get that distance, that vastness of the ocean, going off in the distance behind it. So being up like that just slightly, that was a really good choice in where you shot from. I also am really a fan of all of this scrub brush and the dried wood and everything in the foreground. That adds a lot of foreground interest that I don't feel takes away from it. I like it. It creates the whole scene.
Yeah, well, I did take some inspiration from a guy called Christian Fletcher over here in Australia. He's one of the world's renowned West Coast photographers. It is quite a trek to get there, to get that position, but I think it was worth it. And
absolutely. This is something that I would get printed as wall art. This is something I would want to print out big to hang on the wall.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping I can sell a couple, but there you go.
There you go. Cool. Yeah, get that printed on metal or acrylic.
Oh, and now you're talking. Yeah, metal. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, awesome. I'll take it when you come over, buddy. That's one stop we'll do.
Oh, then I'm definitely gonna have to come over. I'm gonna make you go crawl out there and perch on top of it for one shot, though.
Naked? Not naked again.
Naked, exactly. Nudes in Nature series with Martin. Oh yeah, no, that's a beautiful shot, man. I love that. Man.
Cheers, yep.
Cool. Melissa sent me a folder in Messenger. Oh, nice. Cool. Where's that location? Because I'm trying to figure out what the scaffolding or whatever it is behind him is.
This was actually in Lambertville.
Okay, is that the bridge?
Yeah, that's the bridge. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah. I prefer really shallow. Like I love texture and detail, so that's just more personal preference. Mm-hmm. I really love shooting it low. Just because it brings out like just the green and the skin, and I just really love texture, so that's why I prefer shooting men. Because it's a little more socially acceptable to have like that.
Yeah, and talking about the colors. This image, it's really strong because his skin tone is the only thing in the orange spectrum, and everything else is complementary, and so it really brings you right in here. So you've got the focus and the color both bringing you right into him, and then obviously you've got his eye is just tack sharp, and that catch light right there really just draws you right into it. And I mean, you've got a couple of other highlights in the image, but you're still drawn to the eye because, I mean, yeah, you've got the little bit of reflection on the earring, and you've got the ring here and even the fingernails, but you're just drawn right into his eye because that eye falls right there on that cross section. So it's all, I mean, the composition on this is excellent. I really like this shot. So give us a little insight on your post process for this image.
So yeah, basically it was really overcast, believe it or not. So during post I had a lot of overexposure. Not a lot, but enough to make like the highlights look kind of bad. So I did a complete highlight reduction in RAW, and then I moved everything over into Photoshop, and then I did a lot of gradient mapping in blue, like a cloudy gradation in the cloud color palette. And I did it on an overlay at 20%, and then I used the layer mask to get that like gray haziness in the background, kind of. And then I used a high pass over luminosity mask to get those sharp tack look feels in like the eyes. Otherwise, the rest is just the camera doing the work.
Nice. And that is why we shoot in RAW, so that you have all that detail to pull back. Yep. All right. Anybody else want to say anything about this? I mean, I don't really have anything negative to say about it. You know, I could sit here and try and nitpick some crap, but I'm not even going to do that because I just like the image.
I think straight to the eye. I love the way that your eye's drawn into the face. I love the triangle. I can't see it. I love the triangle from the elbow that opens it up, and it starts to become in focus and leading your eye up to the certain parts of the picture with the ring and the earring, and then it disappears again into that lovely bouquet at the top. So, Melissa, it's a great image. Well done, mate.
I think I like the photograph, but I know that the bridge isn't supposed to be tilted, so it kind of bugs me a little bit. That's just my personal.
Actually, it depends on what angle and what lens you're using. I am looking at the horizon, which you can see right back here, and it might be kicked just slightly, but it's not very far off. So it would really depend on what angle you are shooting with the bridge in the background and what focal length. And you could make it look pretty tilted. Just like you can shoot a image with door frames and stuff, right? And have your camera perfectly level. But if you're at an off angle, you'll see one part of the door frame is straight up and down, and the other one will look like it's tilted. And it's always a challenge. You're like, oh, well, which one am I supposed to straighten to? Or do I need to, adjust the image itself to correct for that? So, but yeah, looking at the horizon, if you look right there where the ring is on his finger, you can kind of see the horizon. Yeah, it looks like it might be tilted just a little bit, but it's not tilted extremely. So, yeah, but no, I understand. I see what you're saying about the bridge.
Well,
looks
the
like
angle,
it's tilted.
I mean, the angle's great for the portrait. It's just my little personality quirk that the bridge is tilted.
All right, OCD.
What
Believe it or not, I actually Dutch angled this because ever since Josh told me about Dutch angles, I've been obsessed. So you are totally right that it is skewed because it's skewed on purpose. So yes, it is skewed. But I really, really like the fact that you said it's not straight because now it's bothering me too.
What f-stop did you shoot this at?
I'm sorry?
What f-stop were
what
you
aperture?
at?
Oh, 1.4.
Okay. Nice. What focal length was it?
I'm a huge fan of 24 millimeter. I know it's a wide angle lens and I shouldn't, but I'm a rebel, so.
Actually, I would never have guessed that was a 24. I would have expected more perspective distortion at a 24 to be close enough to create that depth. On a 24, you have to be right on them. So I would have never guessed that was shot with a 24. I
actually shoot really close, believe it or not. I'm like,
no, that's what I'm saying is, I would expect a lot more perspective distortion from a 24 being that close to them.
Yeah, it took me a lot of time to get mastery of the distortion, but I figured it out, and it comes out so strong every time that I've ditched the 50. I love my 50, but
for this, did you do much distortion correction?
No,
in post,
not at all. No.
Oh wow, yeah, I would never have guessed that was a 24. Good job, nice. Ooh, nice. Another one by Melissa. And I really like the moodiness. I like the old stereo you guys sitting on. Boombox, yeah. Very cool. I like the muted tones here. There's not a whole lot of saturated color going on here. I mean, everything is pretty much grays. There's some blue to the grays, and then you've got his skin tone, which really separates him out from everything else in the frame. There is still a little bit of red and oranges in like the dirt and this rusty spot on the bricks and stuff, but it's all very muted, so it's not a distraction. I really like this almost desaturated look to the image, even though it's not desaturated. Yeah, and I really like the approach of, you've got so much detail in this lower half, but then up here where you have him, he is the only detail. He's sitting in this negative space that lacks all of this brightness and detail. So it really brings you up into him. So you've got all of this interest going on down here, but then he's the main focus right up here. I like that.
To comment on this bando was so dark that I had to. Hi. I see. Yeah. Well, they pulled it. Anyway, so the bando was so dark that I actually had to pull plywood off the window and get a stream of light in. But it created like a really cool overcast effect.
Yeah. By the way, people that are hearing her say bando, that's an abandoned location. Just so y'all know what that is.
Never heard that before. Honestly, I never did.
I know, that's why I just said that, because a lot of people are going to be like, bando, what's bando? So, cool. Yeah, I like it. Anybody else have anything they want to say on it? I don't have any, I mean, I like it. I don't have any real constructive criticism to throw on it. Yeah. Nice.
No, I really love this group because I've been applying every piece of criticism I get as I shoot, and I've been seeing the difference. So, like,
good. That's the whole reason that I wanted to create this group, is so that people can actually not just show and tell, let me post my images and, you know, get likes on it, but actually have open dialogue and discussion so that we each, you know, feed off and learn from each other. So now we're getting back into stuff from Wednesday night where I forgot to hit that record button. Shame on me. Oh, well, it is what it is. I'm doing a quick refresh, see what we got going on here. Well, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to talk about anybody else's that isn't on here because none of them actually did the hashtag, so I'm not going to take that upon myself. What's up?
Can you go back to Martin's landscape?
Yeah.
I want to ask him a question.
You got it.
I know you brought up the colors and stuff. Did you purposely make that turquoise lead us right to the rock in the middle?
No, I didn't. It happened quite naturally, actually, John.
Did it?
Because because that's the natural. You can see just to the right as well. There's a bit of turquoise there. It's actually the way the light plays on that with the rocks underneath there. It's just the way it is. It's just a beautiful place. I've got some aerial shots that I'll probably post soon.
Yeah. Usually when you get that turquoise like that naturally is because that's areas on the floor where it's open light colored sand. Yeah. So it refracts the light and gives you that turquoise color, especially if it's clean water. Whereas you can see where the rocks underneath, it gets very dark because you're not getting that light bounced back out through the water towards you. It's just being absorbed by the darker objects under the water, so you get like this dark area. So yeah, no, it's nice.
I like the way it leads you right into the center of the photo.
Just right into it.
I actually like doing cityscapes from Weehawken Overlook of the. I know it's New York, it's not Jersey you're shooting, but
that's fine.
Get some colors with the sun setting behind you. It's just incredible.
Oh yeah. That's another thing that a lot of people don't realize, especially when they're new to it, is just because it's sunset, you don't have to be shooting at the sunset. Always turn around and look to the sides and look behind you because there might be something amazing happening in a direction you're not looking because you're so focused on the sunset itself, you know? And I think Martin was saying something. I heard, hey, Josh.
No.
Oh.
I had something to throw in there, landscape photography wise. Are people still using graduated NDs, or is that unnecessary now with cameras dynamic range being what it is?
No, I use the graduated ND filter on that one there, Stephen.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of the top names that I do landscape that I see, they're still using graduated NDs.
All right. Thanks for that.
Martin, what are you using, glass or polycarbonate graduated filters?
Glass from Nissi filters in glass.
Are you using the squares or the threaded?
This is the actual kit. I don't know if you can see that there, guys. This is the kit that it comes with.
Nice. I like the box it comes with.
Yeah. So
not that that has
attachment.
anything to do with how good it is, but you know, I always appreciate a really nice carrying case or box.
Yeah, well, I like a good box myself, but there you
go. Hopefully too many people don't understand what you said.
What brand is that again?
It's Nissi, Nisi, Nissi.
Okay, I'll have to look at them too.
Can you guys hear me?
I hear you. Yeah, that's John Harvell.
I sent you a photo on Messenger. I edited it last night.
Oh my God, it's a naked chick.
Not this time.
All right, John, I have pulled up your shot, and we have a model in a red dress and one of those hanging, swinging chairs. And you said this is your first, or something about being in studio. Go ahead and give us a little insight on it.
Okay, last time I shot in a studio was at Jeff Speed's studio with Jenny B. So
okay,
that's what, last year, March time frame.
Mm-hmm.
I normally don't shoot in the studio. I'm always outdoors, and normally, I use the environment, and so shooting in a studio is really not my forte.
Mm-hmm.
But this young lady right here, she's been through difficult times in her lives and stuff, and so it was kind of like with a group meet to photograph her, and this is I was trying to do a low key or high key with this shot, and the too light setup. I would have brought more lighting. I wished I did. I should have brought all 4 of my strobes, because then I could probably done what I really wanted to do.
Yep.
But I didn't. I just sprung the RB90 with chopsticks, which I had boomed overhead. Forward of her, boomed overhead, so I could feather the light. And then I had the strip box, because I didn't bring no reflectors with me. So I used the strip box, and I had it shooting against the wall, and this is the image I came up with.
Cool, man. I like the exposure. I like the light on it. I like the composition, where she kind of stretches out across the bottom and then comes right up that right-hand third line. One thing that kind of distracts me, and I have a feeling it has to do with your lead-in story about her being in hard times. The broken finger or bandaged finger, and the one finger without the red fingernail on it over there really kind of takes away from the image to me. But it's definitely not the first thing I noticed. But when I looked over there, because, you know, obviously her arm stretches out across there, so you kind of follow it with your eye. It takes you right to this big bandaged finger. And then I noticed the lack of the fingernail on that index finger. So that kind of bothers me about it. But overall, the lighting is really nice. I like the composition. I might play with it a little bit, but not anything drastic. And I mean, the edit is nice and not overdone. I might address the patchy redness on her forward elbow. You know, right there where it's propped on the pillow, it's got some patchiness and redness to it. But
well, she was diagnosed with cancer, and with chemo and everything, and she's a really fortunate, and she doesn't model, so but we're going you know, there's a group of us photographers. We're going hopefully try to shoot her once a month, and
nice,
get her really comfortable. And
she's a very attractive woman, and I mean, like I said, it's a great shot. I mean, this is a shot that she would absolutely be proud to show, I'm sure. You know, I like the expression. She's just kind of looking off in the distance. She's got just a nice, natural, relaxed smile to her face. You know, she looks very comfortable and relaxed in it.
Yeah, that was the hardest part. Because she kept on wanting to smile, and everything else cheesy. So what I did is her boyfriend was standing in the corner. I go, look over at your boyfriend. And she's like, really? I was like, yeah, just look over at him and stuff. And when she was looking over, and I was able to get that image.
Steven, I'm muting you because your music kept coming on.
All right. I definitely need to play more in the studio. So.
No, I mean it's good job. The lighting's really nice. I like that you didn't try to blow out the background, because I feel like that would have been too much and it would have, caused some issues with, blowing out some of this ribbing and stuff in the background. But I like that. I feel like the shadow that's being cast by the other light through the ribbing on the pillow actually it adds something to it, because I mean, right here, unless I zoom in, that's just a big open, blank space of color. But having that very subtle ribbing shadow that's thrown kind of breaks it up to the eye on almost a subconscious level. It's not, it's not just this void of one, uniform color. It's broken up. So that's nice right there.
Yeah, I burnt that. I burnt those shadows in more. I did dodge and burn. Of course, I did regular retouching. I didn't want to retouch it too much.
Yeah.
And then
that without that definitely would have been just a void of a space right there. Like I said, unless you're zoomed right in on it where you could possibly see, the texture of the fabric itself, but zoomed out like this, it's just it would have been just a giant void of nothing right there. And everything else in frame has something happening. Her dress has texture and folds and shadows and highlights. Everything has something. So that would have been just a negative space right there. But nice. I like it.
I got a question. Like, with the studio, we shoot a lot of portraiture.
Yep.
Which I prefer anyway. I don't do a lot of full body stuff. But anyway, I don't know if there's no right or wrong, just like what I personally prefer. And I'm not criticizing this picture because that's not why I'm asking this question. You see how she's looking to her boyfriend. And I tell the girls when I'm shooting them, turn your head. I don't want to see more of the whites of your eyes. I'd rather see your irises. Is that like a thing or not a thing, or?
It is a thing, and it's one of those that it's kind of a balance. If her boyfriend had been another few feet further to camera right, so that she was really looking out of the side of her eyes, then yeah, it would have been a problem. But here, you still see her entire iris, even though, yeah, there is a good bit of white showing. She doesn't have that whole zombie eye thing going on where, it's all whited out, know. So
I don't necessarily mean this picture. I'm just asking in general.
Yeah, no.
Because you could see it here.
Yeah, no, I will not have them look extremely out the corner of their eyes away from the camera, because then you end up with majority wide of the eye and get that whole zombie look.
Right.
But I like the looking away from the camera look, as long as it's not extreme. And this is not, and this one specifically is not extreme. Another thing that I want to say about this, John, is I'm really glad that you didn't go your typical heavy on the dodge and burn on her. So it doesn't look like that really almost overdone glamour, or, how we tend to go really heavy on, fitness and muscles. It's a nice subtle highlight. It looks very natural in the way that you dodged and burned the highlights and shadows on her contours. It doesn't look overly done. So I really like that you didn't go super heavy on that. So yeah, nice.
Okay. I just had to ask because, the studio is kind of small, and we're going to try to go in there once a month. Once every 2 months, and some of our local photographers, they don't use lighting at all, or they're really scared of lighting, and try to go in there and teach some of the people about lighting. Me and this photographer Sharon Wallace, and since I do a lot of outdoor stuff and I don't do any indoor stuff, and this, like I said, this is the second time I ever been in a studio environment, and just try and learn how to manipulate light in there is completely different from me trying to base it off the sun.
Oh yeah, and the other thing is that the smaller the studio, the more of a challenge it is, especially if that studio has light colored walls and floor and ceiling, because then it becomes a challenge to control your light, because that light is bouncing off of all of those surfaces. It's not so much a challenge when you have a larger studio, or even a studio that has dark, walls and floor and ceiling, but in a smaller studio that has lighter colored walls, lighting is a challenge because those surfaces all bounce light. So controlling your light in a small studio like that is a challenge. And it's actually a good learning experience, because then you learn, okay, what do I need to control this light? Do I need to put grids on it? Do I need to flag areas? So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that a small studio is a bad thing. I think that it's a good thing, because it adds an extra challenge to it that will cause you to learn how to work with that condition.
Yeah, I have to agree, because I never felt so restrained in my life on movement, or even where I want to go, because I could put, outdoors, I could basically manipulate my entire environment of how I want it to be. And in there, especially what the softbox I brung and everything, it was really challenging. I had to zoom out the focusable parabolic all the way out so I could feather the light how I want it to be.
Right.
I removed the diffusers on the 9x35 strip box. But I think next time I go in there, I'll bring 4 strobes with me, and some soft boxes. I think I could get a little bit more creative, since I'm used to running 2 lights and plus the sun.
Yeah.
And then I can just go in there and actually put 3 lights and mimic the sun in the studio.
That strip box that you have added in here, definitely, it's very subtle, but it definitely really helps the image. And I'm going to point it out for some people, but right here on the top of her shoulder and down her arm is where it really helps, because her skin tone is so close to the pillow or fabric behind her. And I don't mean in hue, I just mean in tone, that if that little bit of rim light right there wasn't there, she definitely wouldn't have had a good separation with that fabric. And that little bit of rim light right there being caused by the light over here definitely gives her that separation and really helps with this. So, all right, well, we're an hour and 15 minutes in, and we've kind of talked about everybody's images. Let's see what we've got going on news-wise and fill that in for the next 15-20 minutes, and then we'll wrap this up and get out of here. So let's pull up one of the mini, see what we got popping around. Ooh, Fuji looks like they are getting ready to announce their new X-T4 and with in-body image stabilization. That's a nice ad. Nice. And it's to be announced, so we don't have hard facts on it, but if that's what comes out, that's a great add to the Fuji lineup, as having IBIS in there. Nice. If you want to make yourself sick, go and find this video right here of what a GoPro spinning at 1800 RPMs looks like. And he progressively goes up through the RPMs and does it. And some of the RPMs that he does literally made me nauseous watching it. But then once you finally get up, if you go all the way to the end of the video to where he's at 1800 RPMs, it's actually pretty cool looking, because then it just becomes a really like abstract blur. So, but yeah, some of the RPMs in between are nauseating. Oh, this one I did want to bring up. So this was one of the 4 announcements Nikon just made a couple days ago at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, the CES show. And when I saw the leak of the announcement of this 120 to 300 f2.8, I was like, wow, that focal range, that focal range at a steady 2.8, that's going to be an awesome lens. And when they announced it, then they announced it with a almost $10,000 price sticker on it, which completely crushed my dreams. But, you know, all I got to say, though, is 120 to 300. You know, one that catches that lower end of, the higher end of the portrait range for me. So that 135 and 200, you know, for shooting really shallow portraits. But then it also jumps you all the way up into that 300 range, which is great for like sports photography and even nature to some extent. So, I mean, that's an awesome focal length, and at a fixed 2.8, that's amazing. But at a $10,000 price tag, ouch. That's all I gotta say is ouch.
Have you seen what's been released recently, Josh? The Insta361R.
The Insta361R. Are you talking about this one?
Let me just get back on.
It's the modular kind of like a GoPro. Yeah, actually, I was watching a video on that the other day, and it looks very interesting. And I saw that they just released another module which has a full 1-inch sensor on it.
Yeah,
and it was actually a collaboration with Leica.
That's right.
Yeah, and that module itself actually isn't bad. I think it was like $400 US. So, but it's a full 1-inch sensor. It's not the little tiny micro sensor that the rest of the GoPro style cameras are using. It's a full 1-inch sensor. So you're going to gain a lot of dynamic range and just quality to the video you can shoot with that larger sensor.
Yeah, for the price of that, buddy, I mean, for that price, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I believe it actually, it was a collaboration with Leica, and the module itself actually has a little Leica brand logo on it. But yeah, the thing is that honestly, you know, GoPro has had such a monopoly on that market that everybody else has had a really tough time getting a foothold in it. And Insta360, they've done a really good job of being very innovative in their product, and I love what their product is because it's all modular, so you can buy different modules and piece together and interchange, almost kind of like a interchangeable lens, like an SLR, DSLR, you know, whatever. But this is in the little action camera market, and I like that. And it's not just like, oh well, this is a lens that I snap on over the existing lens. These are actually interchangeable modules. The other cool thing is those modules are still weather or whatever sealed. So there's not an issue with, you know, oh, well, now I can't take it out in the rain, or now I can't submerge it, or whatever. They're still, you know, fully capable the way they've designed it. So, yeah.
I've just looked at the price there. I don't know when I'm looking at an American price here for the 1-inch edition with Leica, but it's $499.99.
Okay, so 500 US. I thought it was 400, but still, 500 is still.
It might be 500 Aussie dollars. I don't know what the site I'm looking at, so you might be right. Yeah, but it's saying that it's 4K, and you can shoot at 60 frames 4K and 120 frames on 1080. I mean, that's ridiculous for that money.
Oh yeah, and again, that's on a 1-inch sensor, so you have much larger pixels, so you're getting a lot more information and dynamic range and just quality to those, you know. And that also means that, you know, you'll have better noise ratio because of that larger sensor. So, you know, if it's having to shoot at a higher ISO for the lighting conditions, you'll have a better image quality because of it. You know,
I'd love to compare that to the 1DX on that line sensor. That on the 1DX Mark II with video.
Well, the 1DX Mark II, whenever you're shooting at full HD and everything, it's shooting at a cropped area on the sensor, right?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
So it's probably very comparable. That would be an interesting comparison.
Well, for that price, I mean, that's throwaway for me using that professionally. That's throwaway. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, definitely interesting. Definitely something interesting to play with. I actually have been kind of watching Craigslist and stuff for people offloading their older GoPros. Well, no, my reason is because I want to start shooting more behind the scenes while I'm out shooting. Yeah. But in doing so, I can't sit there and go, all right, I need 5 buddies to tag along so I have 5 different camera angles. But if I pick up, 3 or 4 used GoPros for $100 each or whatever, and I just stick them on tripods fixed in 5 different locations, then I've got 5 different angles that I can just cut between, and really create an interesting, from all angles type, final product. So
absolutely, mate. I think that's the way to go. Yeah, especially with education.
Yeah. So cool. What else we got going on here? I know Canon. Oh yeah, Canon unveiled the Mark III for the 1DX, which let me pull that one up. Boom.
You're going to make me feel sick how much mine's depreciated
though. So yeah, the Canon just announced the new 20.1 megapixel Canon Mark D1 or Mark 1 D1X Mark III. There we go. I am so tongue-tied this morning. Newly designed high detail low pass filter and new Canon Digi-X image processor. The ISO range is now 100 to 120 or 100,000 plus, with a expandable 50 to almost 1,000,000 ISO. Wow, 800,000 plus. I can only imagine how noisy that is.
If you're looking for something in the dark if you're looking for something in the dark, just take a photograph of it at that and it'll find it for you.
Exactly. Whenever you wake up in the middle of the night and the boogeyman is coming and you just want to get a picture of him real quick without turning on the lights.
Hey, that's for the film edit.
Yeah. Let's see. What else?
Do you think that's worth the money though? Of anybody that's in my position now, I mean, the twin card slots for both CF, that's a big thing. The wireless is a big thing. I don't think you're going to see a lot of difference day to day in the image. I mean, they've upgraded the frames per second.
For in a working environment, the image quality, I don't see where it would be that much of a improvement that it would, it would increase your quality of product or your profit. I don't see that. One of the big things that I have seen everybody talking about was the 20 frames per second frame rate, which, I mean, in theory would be awesome for sports photographers, but that's in theory. From what I've seen, that 20 frames per second should have an asterisk by it, because that's only 20 frames per second considering certain other factors. And in theory, you're still, in, say, a sports shooting, situation, you're still only going to be getting 12 or 14.
Yeah, well, if you're shooting in JPEG, then absolutely.
Well, the other thing is 20 frames per second is if you turn off the continuous autofocus. So it retains the focus that you had on the first shot when you first pressed and started holding the shutter, rather than continually following the subject. Whenever you have the continuous on, where it's following the subject, basically what happens is then it has to flip down and reacquire focus in between every. And at that point, you're only getting like 12 to 14. You're not getting the 20 frames per second.
Correct.
So,
Well, that kind of sucks, especially if you're shooting sports.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, 12 frames per second, 14 frames per second, that's a lot of frames, you know.
I mean, what are you going to miss?
Yeah, I mean,
but it could be that fraction of a second that you missed the right moment
where they're making contact with the ball. I understand, but you know what? Up until now, people were not shooting, you know, even 10 frames per second, and you know, it is what it is. So
yeah, I don't know. I shoot like 1 frame a minute, so I'm gonna know.
Oh, they've got illuminating buttons.
Brilliant. Yep, illuminating buttons. So in the dark, you can find what's going on. Oh, this is something that I saw that I found very interesting. They have a dedicated gigabit Ethernet built into it. So if you are shooting on a network, this is even better transfer rates. And so if you're shooting on a network that has network attached storage, then this can be configured and allow you to shoot on the network connected via gigabit Ethernet. So that I find very interesting.
They're also saying it's lighter, don't they, Josh? They're saying, what was it, 16 grams lighter or something?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. They don't have all of the specs organized in a nice little, you know, list in here, so I'm just kind of scrolling through. That's nice. The battery life of 2,800 shots. That's really nice.
What's that new file program they've got as well? That Heath. What's that?
The what?
The Heath 10-bit Heath file format.
Hef is basically a much better improvement over JPEG.
Yeah,
it's an image format, not a video format, and it has a lot more information and detail in a smaller file size than JPEG. So really? You're getting a smaller actual digital footprint, you know, file size, but with a lot more information in the image. And the problem is the reason you're not seeing it in other cameras is Canon was very smart, and years ago when the Hef format was actually created, Canon bought into it. So Canon owns part of the patent on that file format. So anybody else that wants to actually create Hef from their products then has to pay a licensing fee to Canon. So that's why you're not seeing it in other hardware, and you're not seeing it in software. That's why you can't convert it to Hef in Adobe, because Adobe doesn't want to pay the licensing fee to Canon to allow them to convert from whatever to Hef, even though it is a much better file format than JPEG. Right. You know, so Canon was very smart way back in the day. They jumped on that and they bought in, and I guess they're kind of like co-owners on the patent for it. So that's why you see, oh, well, Canon has 10-bit Hef in their cameras because they actually own part of the patent. So they're not having to pay that license fee. Whereas if Nikon or Fuji or Sony or any of those guys wanted to be able to shoot directly to Hef, they would have to pay a licensing fee to Canon. So, yep. Cool. Price tag $6,500 US. And
8,000 Aussie dollars.
Yep. Well, if you are a professional photographer, that's a business write-off, and it will improve your business, have at it.
I'll buy 2.
There you go. Buy 3. Go for 3.
That camera is super expensive.
Yep. All right. So that was the Canon's announcement on their new body, and then right above it is the Nikon D780. Which this one I see people, I mean, any camera that's announced, there's always people on both sides. They're like, it's a waste of time. And then the people that are like, oh my God, it's amazing, I need it. And none of them have even had hands-on. So obviously these cameras have not had hands-on. And This one has actually been highly debated kind of in the group, because I posted a link to the announcement of it with all the specs, and I fall into the group that thinks, you know what, I think it is enough of an improvement over the 750, which it replaces, that I personally am considering it. You know, one, because I like the fact that they've gone to a backside illuminated 24 megapixel. So that just means that there's going to be a lot more, or the image quality is going to be better. It's also got the newest processor, the X-Speed 6, I believe. And it also has this new hybrid autofocus. And the hybrid autofocus, basically when you're shooting it with mirror down regular DSLR mode, it's got 51 points, just like it always has. But whenever you do mirror up mode, live view, it actually has the same autofocus as the Z6 and goes to 273 autofocus points that cover 90% of the sensor, and also has the eye tracking.
Right.
So that's significant. So, you know, and the autofocus processing is the same as the Nikon D5. So that's amazing too. So I think there's definitely some serious benefits to this over the 5-year-old D750. And I'll tell you what, I love my D750. It's still my favorite camera, even though I've got, you know, my 810s, which are like my workhorses, but my 750, I love it, and I'll probably keep it. I won't trade it. So, yep. All right. Well, we were at an hour and a half. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wrap this up and say goodbye to everybody. Tell you all to have a good rest of your weekend. And Martin, make sure to send me those dates and everything so I can see what we have going on there. So
good, buddy. Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Martin. And looks like it's just you and me, Steven, and John, and a few people are hanging on the phone. So.
All right. Have a good one. See you Wednesday, maybe.
See me Wednesday? Oh, on the Bourbon Hour. I was like, I'm in Arkansas. What are you talking about?
No, I'll see you on the Bourbon Hour.
All right, brother. Have a good day.